Rachel Humphries, Alumni Relations Officer here at Avondale University College. Today I am chatting with Dr. Mary Trim. She's our 1950 Citation recipient for the honour year 1950. Welcome, Mary, and congratulations.
Thank you, Rachel.
Now, we just want to have a quick chat to you a little bit about what you've been up to since college and your life, and I guess some learnings that you've had along the way. But I'll start with a really simple one. So in a sentence, can you just describe to us, where you live, who your immediate family is, and what you're currently doing?
Right. Well, I'm living on the Gold Coast. I came back from England on the 1st of March after 3 years away. I went there after my husband's death. Had to escape Australia, the pain and suffering we'd been through. And I'm now living in a part of the Gold Coast called Clear Island Waters. And my older son lives just a few minutes away, and I've come back here to live near him and his family.
Oh, very nice. I'm glad you're with family. Now, you graduated from Avondale in 1950. So who is it that made a really positive impact in your life? And if you wanted to say thank you to anyone for that influence, who would it be and why?
Well, thinking about it, I really respect all the college staff of the 1950 period. I was there 2 years, 49 and 50. Dr. Murdoch was an excellent principal, and I think that the whole staff worked together under him. It was a really spiritual place to be. It really was. And in those days, we all lived on campus. None of us had cars, and that was our home, you see. I think particularly of Jeff Rosenhain. He was in charge of teacher training, and he taught me how to be a good teacher, an effective teacher. And I'll never forget how he came and observed one lesson I took that was apparently quite a great success. And after he'd gone and I'd read and he'd congratulated me and all was good, I thought, that's it. I won't see him for another week or so. But lo and behold, he turned up next day, and I'd been pretty busy and I hadn't gone the extra mile in the preparation. And he didn't stay very long. He just watched for a little while and then he left. And when I picked up my prac book, he'd written on it, "Presentation is commensurate with preparation." That was all he said, and I've never forgotten it. Unless you prepare well, you can't expect to have great success. So I learned from Jeff Rosenhain. But really, they were a completely dedicated staff. They were, every one of them, from Miss Vetter in the kitchen. Everyone loved Miss Vetter. Now she's asleep, of course. There was the girls' preceptress. They didn't call them girls' deans in those days. She was very good. The gardening staff, everybody. It was a wonderful Christian place to be. It really was. I've written a few thoughts down. That Dr. Noel Clapham encouraged my writing. I don't know if you've seen a poem that I wrote in 1950 called Avondale. Have you seen that at all?
No, I haven't.
Well, look, let me recite it to you.
Please.
And he really liked this poem, but he did encourage me. And I think he was the staff person he was an English teacher as well as history. And he kept an eye on the literary side of things. In 1950, this was published in Forum. I called it Avondale. Blue sky, trees, green grass. Feet that pass through hallowed halls, cream walls. Music, laughter, song. All day long, the breath of prayer somewhere. And God. And that's how I felt about the place. It was a very, it was a great place to be. There were other influences there. You see, it was the Australasian Missionary College then. It wasn't Avondale College. It wasn't Avondale University College. It was the Australasian Missionary College. And it was there were returned servicemen there. It was only 4 years since the war. The Second World War ended. Right. And a number of the young men had served in the forces. So they were very serious. They'd been in a life and death situation and given their hearts and lives to the Lord, and they had helped to add to the spirit of the place. I think of Lewis Lansdowne, for one. He'd been a pilot, an RAF pilot. He went to England. He was in the... Yes, he joined the RAF, not the RAAF. And he was flying over Europe, destroying, getting the job done. So he was there, and there were others. But then there were the returned missionaries that came. There were always missionaries turning up to take a chapel service, to preach on Sabbath. So we were continually being inspired and afire to work for the Lord.
What an incredibly interesting time to have been here on campus, eh?
It really was.
A really rich time.
It was. I'm just trying to think. Pastor A.H. Piper, I wrote his biography. He was the first missionary of our denomination to go to the Pacific Islands, to go to the Pacific. And he lived in the village over by the swing bridge, and he and his wife came to Friday night song service, always there on Sabbaths, often took worships in the dining room. And he was an inspiration. He was a living figure. He'd lived with Ellen White in Sunnyside. His whole story began with her influence, and it was all it was inspiring.
Yeah, a really interesting time here on campus.
There was Pastor Wicks, I remember, came back. And then there was Gilmore, Lawrence, was it Lawrence? Pastor Gilmore, anyway, big strapping fellow, he'd been a missionary. Yes, it was a great place to be because of all these people who came. Not only the dedicated staff, but the people who came in. So,
beautiful.
Yeah, I was greatly impressed by that. Yeah. I mean, it was an interesting place for me because I'd never heard of Ellen White.
No, you would have had quite the culture shock.
I was a New Adventist, never heard of Ellen White, and never been instructed about vegetarianism, didn't expect vegetarian meals.
So you would have had quite the journey here, and I love the words that you were saying earlier in your poem about Avondale, and you have this gift, this mastery of the English language, and that's become your life work. So what is it about words that you saw to commit to this calling, and why are words so powerful to you?
Well, you know how it is with families. Certain families have their own particular talents that they carry on from generation to generation. And so you'll get a family where they all seem to be medical doctors. And that was a bit the way on my husband's side, so that I have 2 doctors in my family of my own children, and then you get people who they're all into science, or they're all into nature, or they're all into music. Well, I had a literary background in my English grandmother, because she was not only a headmistress of a girls' school in Birmingham, but she was a published poet as well. So it was in my genes. I really had no choice in the matter.
I'm sure there was a little choice.
Oh, well, there was. And the thing is that I don't sit down to write a poem, or I don't decide I'm going to write a poem today. I hear it in my head. Sometimes I get the complete poem, you see. It just comes completely. I'll give you an example. I walked in the wind, and it blew me inside out and away. Over the stream and the willow trees, whirling and twirling, I flew in the breeze. I wish that it blew every day. Now that's a little poem that just came straight just like that. I just went in and wrote it out, sent it away, and it was published.
Wow.
I didn't. There was another one. I was weeding in the garden one Sunday afternoon, and it was early in the year when all the children were going back to school again, and I heard this in my head: snail unwillingly to school, mother's feet, not child's. He is tripping eagerly as spring, shyly beaming. Far ahead the road of learning winds to heights of shade and sun, like this February day. Goodbye, little one. So that's the sort of thing that from an early age, it was in my head. I've matured over the years, of course. The sort of thing I'm writing now is more of a literary art form. I'm writing a lot of free verse now. That's apparently there's 500 or so followers of my verse, I'm told. And I don't get the whole thing now. It may be because I'm older. I might just get a verse, and then I say, Lord, well, I'm ready for the next one when you want to give it to me. And then it comes, and then I'll get a bit more. And often I see a picture in my head. I just see a picture, and then I describe it.
And Mary, you've had such a literary career. You've been published in numerous papers, journals, Spectrum magazine, just to name a few. But writing's not the only gift you've had. Now, we can note in the citation, and just for everyone watching, you can read Mary's citation in our Homecoming magazine that we've published. But you've had an opportunity to represent Australia at the Commonwealth Games. So tell us a little bit about your athletic journey and why you didn't take up the opportunity to do that.
Well, to begin with, it's not Australia. I'm a New Zealander.
Go Kiwis.
Well, I'd held a record for hurdling. I was very good at hurdling. I wasn't a sprinter. I usually came about third in sprinting. I couldn't sprint. I wasn't a sprinter, but I was very good at hurdling. And I held a record for a long time. And it was just anticipated that because it was in the... it would have worked as a Commonwealth record, you see. It was good enough. I was assured that I would be going. But that was around the time that I became an Adventist and was baptised. And... With great sadness, nearly broke my heart. I sold my running shoes. I'd saved up to buy proper spiked running shoes, which were my pride and joy and absolutely loved. But because everything happened on Sabbaths, all of the competitions, and I just felt I couldn't do it. So that's all.
And you've kept active throughout your life?
Oh yes. That's why I'm looking forward to getting swimming again when my broken foot is healed. Yes.
Oh, I mean, I was going to say, I can tell you look fantastic. You've got such a bright mind, and I'm sure that's all contributed to that. Now, at age 4, you stood on a box in a radio studio to present your poem and your poetry to an audience. That's a pretty brave thing to do at the age of 4.
Sounds mad, doesn't it?
Sounds fun.
But I was quite a confident little girl. I sang solos in the Sunday school concerts when I was 4. I sang one about feeding the sparrows in winter. People used to make a great fuss of me. I think I heard I was regarded as a bit of a prodigy. My mother used to curl my hair in rags at night. That was the way you got ringlets. And I looked sort of like a Shirley Temple type. I don't know if you've heard of Shirley Temple.
I have.
Yes, well, she was the great actress when I was a little girl. And, no, I was just a confident little girl, that's all. And the poet, I used to make up. I mean, what I made up, I don't know where it came from. Because the only sort of verse I heard was nursery rhymes. My mother would tell me nursery rhymes. But I can remember the first poem that I ever wrote down when I learned to write when I was 5. It's funny. What is it? Look at that lady taking her baby out in the nice fresh air. The girls and boys, they play with their toys, and lambs are frisking about all day. Frisking about it all day. Frisking about all day. Where did I get all that vocabulary from? I don't know.
Well, look, it sounds to me like you followed a desire that was placed on your heart. So Dr. Mary Trim, the class of 1950 honours you for parlaying a love of literature into a ministry of teaching and learning. Congratulations, and thanks for spending a moment with us.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. Well, I will accept, not for myself, because the class of 1950 was a very dedicated class. I've counted up 13 of my friends are already resting and waiting for the Lord. And on behalf of the 1950s class, who all were very dedicated people, it's not for me, it's for them as well. Thank you, Rachel.